Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome and welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. Well, we are here to do Secret Invasion Promises. This is episode 2 of Secret Invasion. Yeah, let's get right into it.
Yeah, what an episode.
A bunch of stuff happens.
Yeah.
So, we start in 97, 2 years after the events of Captain Marvel, and
We're in Brixton.
Yes, we're in London, and the woman who I just assume is his wife at the end brings in a young Gravik, so we kind of get the what the relationship is there for the two of them. Like Gravik is this kid who, did he watch his parents die? Like both his parents were dead, but did he see it?
That's what I believe.
And then he had
she
to, like,
said
man
to
a
him.
ship, and like basically he fought in the
Yeah.
war as well, which he mentions later. But like
he fought his way out, is what she's saying, and he's the important thing is he's a survivor.
He's a survivor. But we see that Nick is kind of like, I mean, I don't want to use him, but she's like, hey, just talk to him, just make the connection. And then we see Talos basically use his capital with everybody to vouch for Nick, and that kind of the beginning of what is now the end. It's just like, hey guys, like, we know it's hard times out there, but we owe everything to Nick and Carol, and you're kind of like, yikes. 2 years in, and I guess that's where Nick is kind of like, okay, like, we need your help with stuff, so while you work to keep my home safe, Carol Danvers and I will work to find you a new one. And you're just like, seems like such a long time to have that promise going.
I know and I mean, obviously it's saying a lot about the politics involved within this. Like, hey, we'll get you there, and hey, you keep putting it off, it's been a while. And this is where you understand where Gravik's coming from. It's like, oh, it's been from 97, it's 2 years after Captain Marvel. And yeah, there's the context that they're giving here is wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
You're seeing him be like, basically change everything about yourselves, and then we'll figure this out. Don't worry about it.
We promise you have, Captain Marvel and my kind of thing, that we're going to find you a new place. And I mean, the personal aspect of what Gravik is doing now is just like, oh, that just got a different level of complexity. And it's wonderful because he's just going from one traumatic situation immediately to like, hey, trust me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got to imagine there was a downtime from trauma, because
absolutely
you have to at least assume that there is some form of healthy bonding between him and Nick for Nick for that departure to mean something to Gravik. But yes, you're right. Like, he's very vulnerable at this point, and so he probably latched on pretty tight to Nick.
Yeah, this is definitely not painting Nick in the best light in this right away. It's just like, this seems, it seems
it isn't
weird.
Great, but also I'm like, where legitimately, where are you just gonna find another planet for them?
There's nowhere else. This is the best of a bad situation. 100%. It's
but like you're right though. Like, overall, you're like, wow, why'd you even make this promise? Like, because it seems like he cares. I will say that. Like, it's not like it doesn't seem like he's just fully being like, I'm just gonna get these people to work for me and I don't give a fuck. Like, it seems like he genuinely cares
absolutely
about some of these scrolls.
Yeah, but you can definitely see where the naivety here in his younger days is definitely, and that's a cool thing that they are able to bring back that very effective de-aging aspect of this, of what Marvel is capable of doing, and being like, yeah, this this is really convincing. This really sets a
Yes.
stage for a lot of this.
So then they go to the present day, which is the bomb, and kind of Nick gets pulled off by Talos, but we don't know it's Talos right away. And we see one of the scroll from the first episode who changed. He gets captured. He actually gets apprehended. I shouldn't say captured. He's legally apprehended for bombing. And then I like that we get some time to watch Gaia fully be like shaken by the events and being like, what the fuck just happened? Like, what is going on here? And then she goes off with Gravik, which seems kind of like begrudgingly, like, I mean, I guess I have to, but I'm not quite sure what's going on here. I don't think I quite like what's going on here.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, really understood what the rebellion was all about at this point. It's like, oh, we're really escalating things. We are the terrorists and all this kind of stuff in this kind of situation.
And I still think she might be like, so did they give me bad information, or like what's going on here?
Yeah, I think she's definitely trying to find her footing. But the important thing here is they're reminding you this is Maria Hill and this is her dead, because we spent time with that body again and still again later on for sure, which is very effective stuff.
Yes, she is definitely dead. This is not a fake out. Then we get to that train scene. Like, I guess they're going from Moscow to Warsaw, Poland.
Yes,
and Talos, again, just doing everything he can to help Nick. And throwing the guards off the scent by being a woman that's like, oh, like flirtatious and like, oh, you think I'm gonna see a black man on this train? I don't think so. Which I was just like, I mean, the way this scene ends, how does Nick get out of this? But I guess the point is he'll figure it out. But yeah, I like that this leads them into. Actually, I didn't quite know what Nick Fury was getting at here. My assumption is because he starts off with, have you heard from Gaia? And he's like, no. And I'm sure what's not being said here is, did she lie to us? Because then he goes into the whole, my mom and I would take these train rides to Detroit. They're very long. She would play Tell Me Something I Don't Know with me. And he says, like, one time she said, tell me something I don't know about you and Susie, this girl that I used to play doctor with. And basically he lied. He's like, oh, we saw some toad and it was spotted. And she's like, got it. Like, the fact that you lie about that tells me everything I need to know. And I'm like, is this like him being like, if she lied to you, that pretty much tells you what you need to know? Or was he just setting up, don't lie to me right now when we play this game?
So
I couldn't tell.
I genuinely think this is one of those things where I'm like, this is one of those interrogation tactics that he's using, where I'm just going to bait you in with emotion and then all of a sudden be like, I've got you on the hook emotion wise. You're paying attention. You're hanging on to every word. I've personalized this and I'm turning this around on you now because I can tell when you're bullshitting me. I think that's what he was both simultaneously disarming him and being like, and I'm going to turn this into a fun little game of interrogate you because I don't trust you anymore.
So he's like, oh, what do I not know about like the fall of Skrullos? And he's like, no, you know everything. He's like, no, that's not the name of the game. And then we get to, okay, well, there's like a million Skrulls here now.
That very genuine reaction he had. It's like, oh, this is real information to you right now.
I mean, this is the point of the show that he's not where he used to be. But I was like, wow, you didn't know that? Like, you didn't have any clue that there would be like. He's like, basically none of like any scroll that's not captured like is here.
And
he's like, what? And I like, because this mirrors a scene that happens later in the scene in the episode that like I think Samuel Jackson talked about this show really like disarming Nick Fury, like really stripping him down. So he lost his like number one second hand like right hand person,
lieutenant or whatever.
He's gonna lose his friend Talos here with this fight. He's gonna lose his other friend Rhodey later, but it's just like that he's finally having to confront these things now, and it's not going well for him. So like this is the first conversation, because obviously the Maria Hill conversation didn't end in them not being on good terms. That was just them laying things flat, and then she died. But this one is like, no, like he's been avoiding conversations like this, and now he's having it, and it's not going well. And you said it last episode that obviously Talos thinks that Skrull should be on Earth, and I was like, oh, I don't think so, because why would he get kicked off the council? But he says right here, no, I think we can coexist.
Yep.
And so I guess the distinction is he thinks they can coexist. Gravik thinks they need to get rid of humans.
Yes.
That would be the difference here. And
Fury's opinion being that this only works out if you leave. Like, that's it.
Well, he's basically saying you can't coexist, which he's right. He's like, you understand that humans can't even coexist with each other. There's not enough tolerance or space on this planet for another species.
100%.
And I do appreciate that they get into that. It is a tolerance thing, that it is within human nature to just not tolerate it.
Yeah. And again, that tolerance is, again, based on trust, right?
And because it won't matter how many instances you can give us Skrulls saving lives or being beneficial. People are like, no, you're just gonna let them come here. No, wait, get them out of here.
Yeah, they can't just take our jobs.
Yes, exactly. All of that.
It's all the xenophobia tied into this.
Yes.
It's a wonderful exploration of it, right? Because even Fury, who's like, quote unquote batting for this team, is like, no. And you see his hypocrisy later on.
Well, what I liked about what I took to be his actual anger was when Talos rightfully says, like, fuck you, man. Like, you just make us your little servant, your errand boys. And like, it suits you. And he's like, well, the host gets to set the terms of the visit. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, you left. I didn't know you were going to come back. So I tried to do something to save my people. And then when you came back, you didn't even want to talk. And he's like, yeah, but when I left, you knew how to get in touch with me. Like, so unlike Maria, we know this because we saw that at the end of Far From Home. He can contact Samuel or Nick Fury whenever he wants. Yeah, he's like, you never did, because you knew what that would mean. And I like that. Yes, they're talking about this very serious thing, but it's also like these are two men that can't really deal with things head on.
No,
at this point, they haven't been able to. As much as people are saying Nick, and in this case Talos is right, Nick isn't willing to deal with stuff, he wasn't really willing to deal with that either. This is what I'm doing, because like Talos is in the right. Like, the option is let people die or save them, so it shouldn't be an issue for him to just be like, hey, you're up in your space station, I in order to rescue the people that you said that you were going to help, I'm bringing them here.
Yep.
And it's not asking permission, it's just a matter of fact, like, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think throughout the episode, Nick is seeing, like, man, like, I'm out of step, but also just like, this is what people think of me. Like, they don't trust me. They can't work with me. And so I think that is a lot of his frustration, because
it's
him. That's a lot more thing. And yes, this is a deviation from what he thought they were working towards. But I also think he's just like, personally, I'm hurt by this.
Oh, he's absolutely hurt by this, and he can't express it, rightly so, like you point out, because this is an exploration of like how the generation before us basically exacted their power through like, hey, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, all this kind of stuff. So it's basically the boss figuring out, wait, what, my employees didn't like me. This is a shocker to me. They came to my barbecues all the time, and it's just like, yeah, but you understand it's because they wanted a raise from you, so they had to put in FaceTime with. It's like that exploration of the changing of the guard, the old ways, and like kind of the thing I said previous episode of like, this is the Gen Zs being like, no, we're actually going to do something about it. Here's what we're going to do, and it's wonderful to be like, I never actually had the ground that I actually thought I had in the first place. It's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciated this scene a lot. Like, I thought it was really well done, and just the way he ends it, he's like, "There's not enough space on this planet, and I don't think on this train either. I think this is your stop." I was like, Nick, you're so petulant, but like,
yes, yep.
Like, geez,
pushing people away when you
I
need
would
them
rather
most.
watch him blow up like this than have him just be cool and like, well,
Oh
we'll see
yeah.
what happens. Like it's like, oh no, like you're really watching him have to deal with being out of step.
Yes,
And
because
he's not reacting well.
yeah, he's not. And the thing I like most about this is that we're watching this happen because he at least still has that level of trust within Talos to be this level of vulnerable to have that reaction. Right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
otherwise you could have seen him be like, you think I didn't know 1 million? And then afterwards he's like, damn, 1 million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just hold it together during that part. He can't even do that here because he's disarmed himself as well through this game. And it it's just so cool to watch him be like, I got shit done, but I didn't get shit done the way I thought I did. And it's so cool to see. This scene is amazing.
I thoroughly enjoy this scene. So yeah, Talos changes back into the woman, gets off the train, and again a bit of non-verbal act. I mean, it's not really like he makes noises, but like just another chance to watch Nick Fury fully absorb what happened. And I feel like there's a bit of decompression. There's just like really letting you sit with the human aspect of this.
Yeah, he's imploding. Yeah. It's wonder, like, look at the acting choices he's doing with the implosion too. It's just like you pointed out the previous episode. I'm like, no, this is up there with his performances.
He's doing a great job.
He's doing an amazing job.
I'm not saying Ben Mendelsohn isn't either. I'm just saying like Samuel Jackson's really showing you why like he was there since the beginning. Like in terms of when they're like, oh well, what's something that will really blow people's minds to put into our first movie to really put it over the top? Nick Fury or Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury.
Yep.
But yeah, the next scene again I think features some great reactions from Nick Fury, but it's when he goes to see. Basically, he's going to see Maria Hill send off. He has to speak to his mom. So again, another conversation he can't avoid. He tries to avoid it even face to face with the mom, and she's like, "Don't fuck with me. Like I got it from them. You can't give that to me." So she's giving him a truth he doesn't really want to have to deal with, and a conversation he certainly doesn't want to deal with. When she's like, "Oh, you guys were there together. She would follow you anywhere. So you are the reason she's dead." Okay. Well, then, like, fucking get your shit together because you can't let her die for nothing. Like, like whatever it is you guys were doing, like, you better get it right. Like,
don't make it for this, whatever this is, you know.
But
and she's right.
She's right. I enjoyed that she got to have her frustrated moment with him. But and that, when she says like, "Oh, like, don't let this be for nothing." He doesn't have like a witty comeback or like he just actually, you can see his words or her words affect him physically. Yep.
He's, I mean, for lack of a better term, he's learned to really absorb and feel everything that's coming at him right now. And it's obviously changing him, right?
I mean, I don't even know if he's learned to do it. It's just, it is happening. He is absorbing and feeling everything in this show. Like,
whether or not he's learned to do it as an active thing, it's finally gotten in. His defenses have dropped 100%. And I love the honesty he was actually able to give to her in this scene, but he struggles with it. It's rough for him.
He's like, oh, you know, she's like, no. This, what's, she's like, okay, we were there together to try and stop this. And she's like, jeez, all right.
Yeah, it's him admitting that he A, didn't do what he planned to do, and then B, that he fucked up even worse in the sense where he's like, I was off my game, and that's the reason why she's dead. It's hard for him, and I appreciate this.
Then we see Gaia drive home with Gravik, and she's like, "So, how did you know that Nick was going to be there?" And I think this is what I like about Gravik is that it doesn't really matter if he's telling the truth. I do believe that he's like, I just hoped he would be there, and I'm glad he was there because then I got to do what I wanted to do. But I didn't know for sure he was going to be there. And unlike other villains that we've talked about, like Joker or most recently like Jason Momoa, like you can just understand that like it didn't really matter if Nick showed up to that because his point was he still is going to let off those bombs regardless. That is the point. So you don't have to be like, oh well, how did he know? It was like, no, he got to have his cake and eat it too. He's probably really happy with himself. But he's like, if he didn't show up, that like my plan still would go forward.
Yeah, and he'd be like, "Hey, it went off without a catch." Is what you're saying?
I did it. Like, he's like, I genuinely did not know he would be there. I just was like hoping, and it worked out, and I got to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah, which is pin this on America and really start the catalyst for World War III, and you see those reactions come out.
So I liked that, and then so this leads into him going into like the Council of Skrulls, and I know there's a news piece before that, but really the point of that news piece is so you can see the major players and then see that they're in the room with him. When they didn't invite him to it, but like he has so much. I keep wanting to use the word cow. That's not right, but like he's got so much sway with Skrulls that they were like, "Oh well, we're happy to have you," and there was a seat for him. But like it was just like, I mean, we didn't invite you. We kind of wanted to do this without you, but you're here, so like, sure enough. And obviously, we see later on that he had a side deal with the French prime minister. But like, I like that he's kind of just there, like, look at you guys, like you're just acting like them, like, and it's true, like the way that scene plays out, like when the guy like that heads up NATO was like, I'm the head of NATO. I'm like, but you're a Skrull.
You're not, though.
Like you're talking to a bunch of, but it's proving his point that like you guys are really like sunk in deep to this human thing, and that's disgusting. Like you guys need to figure this out,
right?
And well, better to be like a human than a dog. He's like, no, not in my eyes. I'd rather be a dog.
Yeah. And the reason he lays out is really, really good. It's like, have you taken a look at history? It's like, this is their history.
Yeah, he's like, I don't feel bad about this at all. Like, they were always doomed to like destroy themselves. We're just hastening the inevitable. Like,
absolutely.
I'm perfect. Like, I do not lose any sleep over any innocent people that die during.
Yeah, and I'd like to think that his points are that if they take over, that they wouldn't ruin this planet the same way humans actively do, like he points out, and all this and all the other things too, right?
Which like he's giving them this big dress down, which he kind of again like just really rolling into whatever he wanted to do anyway. Like I'm like, and I feel like you had something to offer up, like Madam Prime Minister.
It's like cue
like,
line.
Like,
say your line now. Like, do your thing.
It's like, oh, paid. Right, yeah, like he should be the general. He should basically just be in charge of all of us.
Yeah, it's like, hey, democracy is good for peacetime, but we're not now. We're war. And he's right. Let's do him.
It's a bit awkward, but I do like his like, this is war. This is war. I was like, yeah. This guy's getting amped up. I like it. He's not always calm and collected. But he's like, no, it's war times. I should be able to make unilateral decisions, and this is the council, so who's with me? And it's only the one woman who's like, do you guys forget that it's not because we weren't willing to fight, it was because we were too eager to fight that we lost the last war? And he's kind of like, nah, you're an idiot, shut up.
It's like, shut up. That's loser mentality.
She's right. She's definitely right then.
She's 100% right.
Yeah, like, that minor detail.
Because she's like, hey, are we not we're not coexisting anymore. That's okay, cool, we failed last time, so this is gonna go well for us.
And then this is the first of two times where I feel like they do a good job of addressing the Avengers, when it's like the bad guys. I'm like, well, okay, well then what if the Avengers come? And he's like, I haven't thought about that. And we'll see. I mean, it isn't explicitly stated, but I feel like the show is heavily hinting at he's going to be a super Skrull, or he's trying to create super Skrulls. So like that will be fine.
Because when is the Easter egg that you find out that they have Groot DNA and Ebony Maw and all that kind of stuff? But you find that out later on. But
like he's got a plan to match their might, for lack of a better term.
Correct.
Because yes, we know the second thing is Nick Fury being like, well, I don't want to bring them because then they'll just duplicate them and then they'll look like terrorists. So no, I don't want that. So it's like both sides are like, hey, we're ready if they come, and the other side's like, I think we know what will happen if they come, so we don't want to involve them just yet.
Right. Because like Fury very smartly being too like, hey, we're still at the information gathering phase, as crappy as, well, at least he is. And that's
just not yet. He never said like, well, we'll never bring them in. He's just like,
it's like, you don't show that card
without them. Then that would be great. but yeah, basically he becomes the general. There's no more doubt about it. And the woman who tried to object calls Talos and is like, "Yeah, he's the general now." He's like, "I only really want to talk about my daughter." So like, sure, great, but what's going on with Gaia?
Yeah, because he's at that point of accepted. It's like, yeah, what that was what he was working towards, and he successfully did it. So yeah, just let me know about my daughter at this point. I like where he's coming from. He's like, it's a human in him right now.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, okay, well,
or the vulnerable. I shouldn't say human.
Because I mean? He's already been kicked off the
council.
So he's like, I don't have power. But I guess the important part is she's saying, I will give you my help wherever you need it.
Yeah, I side with you now.
Yeah,
lines are being drawn.
Yes, yeah.
Good stuff.
So then we see Rhodey, and he speaks in front of this international panel on behalf of the U.S.
What a scene!
Yeah, so he's kind of just like, I don't care that Russians presented pictures of Maria Hill and I almost said it, Nick Fury. Give them to us, and maybe we can look at our thing in Langley. And basically, they asked the question everyone should have been asking before the conversation even started, which was, "What are you even doing here? You're not. You're not
the president. Like, yeah, what are
you
doing?
And then
you're not an elected official."
He's just like, "Well, I'm here as a courtesy, and basically, the president's not going to just show up because you asked him to, and you don't have anything. So until you have something, this is all you're going to get." And I was like, "All right, fair enough."
Yeah, coming
it was
in
like a purpose, like purposely sending him as a smack in the face.
100%.
Like, this guy doesn't have. He is a superhero, but like he's not the head of anything. So here you go. You talk to him. And then when they're leaving, that there is the fun runner about Slovakia and how he wants to carpet bomb them. But more importantly, after that, whatever you would call that, he gets a call from Nick, and they're gonna meet at an empty bar.
And this is the scene that you're talking about, I hope.
Yeah, this is last.
Okay,
episode.
yeah. Because I'm like, if there's another scene,
no.
Damn.
In last episode of our show, I said that there was there was a scene this time with two black men that was gonna get to the heart of some stuff. And I must say, this is the scene where I was like, well, if the rumors are true, I just hope they are, that this Rhodey is a Skrull. Just because of how he handled himself during this. I was just like, I mean, I hope he's the Skrull. But yeah, they have a very it's not a lot is said out loud, but a lot is being unpacked here. And they say it outright, like, well, Rhodey says it like, yeah, there's the, we're both black, we're both in the superhero business, we're both military, all of these things. And yeah, I think people see this as them one-upping each other, or trying to one-up each other the whole time. And I'm like, no, what I mean is with their points. Like, people are, oh, that's a good comeback from Rhodey. I'm like, no, I think it's just all good points from Nick Fury. And like we said, or for me personally, like we talked about, like, it just sucks that Rhodey, the character, no matter where he became a Skrull, is always going to side with the government and try to do what I think is respectability politics. Right. Because Nick Fury's basic thing is like, just help me. And he said, because I'm black, just do it. Like, that's what you should do. That's the right thing to do. You've got this power. Let's make it mean something. We put so much more into getting this power than the Alexander Pierces of the world. Like, their parents can get that power for them. We have to legitimately be this good and fight for it. And so when Rhodey goes like, well, I didn't get this power just to give it back to a mediocre person who looks like me. I'm like, but this, it sounds nice, and I'm not saying this is a fault in the story. I think this is a take a black person would have, but it's a take that I feel like when they're trying to engage in respectability politics, which is like, well, no, I can't just give it to you because you're black. I'm like, literally everyone is doing, and I shouldn't say literally, but not just white people. A lot of different communities will do that for themselves.
100%.
Yes, you're on board, and when you take that out of it, it is what Nick was saying, which is our mediocre isn't their mediocre. Like, even if you're looking at me like mediocre, I'm 3 times like I just recently rewatched Fences, which kind of drives it home again. He's like, you ever see like a black person on the bench like during a football game, during a baseball game? They're probably better than most people. Like, the fact that they even got on that team is a big deal. That doesn't speak to it now in sports, but back when Fences was made, he's like, like that person sitting on the bench, you know how like crazy good they have to be even sit on that bench. If you see a white person on the bench, you know they fucked up. Like, and again, this is in the 60s, 50s. But that idea that these two people having these conversations, the fact that they get to be there, like, means there's nothing mediocre about them. They're not Alexander Pierce mediocre, which is why I was like, I get why people could look at this scene and be like, oh yeah, good point. No, good point. But it's like, to me, it's actually doing a good job of just showing you like what happens when you get caught up in the myth that there is nothing structural that is keeping people that look like them down.
Right. It's you're right to point out that it happens in every community, because I can speak to my own and the idea of like, hey, we got, Olivia Chow as mayor, and not every Asian is happy about that because their respectability politics are like, no, she should be better than everyone else. And I'm like, she is. That's why she got the job.
Yes.
And then the idea of like, you want her to be even at a higher level for whatever reason, but you're not even, it's just like these standards that we put on each other and all this kind of stuff is like, how do we look to whom though? How are we looking to whom? And it's
exactly
just,
like
it's
the white gaze and like
exactly.
Like, oh no, well
we have to pass. We have to be approved or
like,
something like that.
Don't worry about that.
Exactly.
Like, you're talking to Nick Fury, and So I really resonated with this scene. Like, I wasn't last episode. I hadn't seen that scene, as I'd said, so it's not like I knew I just knew that something was coming, and I enjoyed it the same way I enjoyed Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that they went deeper than just the regular, like, racist people say this. So it's like, they were actually taking a look at like what it is to experience that stuff and live it as the black person. Like, they become the subject as opposed to just the things are happening to. And to have these actually, again, that's why I like Falcon and Winter Soldier. Is people are like, well, it's just about him becoming Captain America. I'm like, no, you're spending those hours with someone being like, I know why I shouldn't do it, but what am I like? What is pushing me forward? And you actually, again, get to sit with the black character and be like, these are like, he might be wrong, but these are the reasons why he's like, no, I want to fight for my country. This is how I move forward. And the show shows you how he's going to be different, like by using his skills as someone that would speak to vets and use therapy. So when he has the ending thing and people are like, you just talked, I'm like, yep, they're showing you he's not going to punch his way through every problem. Like, that's his thing. And this show, again, like, I don't know how much they're going to like lean on it, but it was just interesting to see, like, like Nick Fury being like, you should help me because we're black in a world where like they're trying to take us down anyway. And like, he's like, yeah, but I can't, because then it'll just look like I'm giving it to you because you're black. Like, don't worry about that. Like, like, it happens again. I'm not a superhero, but it's happened to me where like my parents will get me a job interview with their friend, a person of color, and they'll be like, but I can't just give it to you because, so then I'm out of work because of the optics of it. Like, how's it gonna look? And you're like, oh, thanks a lot.
It's a challenge of like, how's it gonna look? I'm like, I don't think the other populations care about the nepotism and what it looks like and all that kind of stuff, because it's blatantly there.
Yeah, like,
and it's just like,
we talk about it like, that Ross is going to be president the next time we see a movie,
Yep.
or next time we see a Captain America movie, and it's like that guy's fucked up. Like that guy's messed up a million times. No one's like, how's it gonna look? Because he fits the uniform of like what you would want a president to be, and in quotation marks, what you would want a president to be.
Right.
Like it's fine. Don't worry. Like again. Nick Fury, Rhodey mediocrity is not the same as Ross,
of course,
Pierce mediocrity.
Right. It's just like, yeah, it's like basically pointing out the fact that it's like, hey, that's the George Bushes of the world that, versus the Obamas. And like
people
what
that
you're
like, as you said, like we fought, like it took blood to get here, not just like, hey, a couple of handshakes. You look like the person that can do the job.
Yeah. It's just like, hey, I'm reminding you that our nepotism, our standards, our everything is at a different level altogether. And that, yeah, I'm down and out right now. I need some help. I'm asking you for it. He's being very vulnerable. And this is a very, very conflicting scene because like you said, Rhodey's exploring the points that a lot of people of color have. Right. And he's doing these conversations that a lot of people of color don't get to do. And it's very interesting to explore both sides of this and then see how it's playing out within the context of this show. Because it's just like he even goes like, hey, who do you think got you this job? Like all this kind of stuff. It's like I used it, like I'm using my get out of jail free card. I'm using my card with you. Come on, man. And it's a wild thing because everyone's right. Everyone's bringing up good points.
Well, I'm saying I don't think Rhodey's right, but I think that I see why he thinks he's right.
Oh, I 100% see why he thinks he's white. I side with Samuel L. Jackson with this in the sense where I'm like, no, he's giving you information that you just, and this is why I'm like, okay, is he actual Skrull or not? Because the way he reacted to it and like all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Now, Fury didn't disclose the number.
No.
But he's just like, no, that's happening now. When they were paranoid about it back then, no, it's real. It's happening now.
Right. So what we didn't say was that during this conversation, I guess Fury thinks he's gonna like drop this bomb on Rhodey about like, hey, like your security detail, they could be either Skrulls or working for Skrulls. And he's like, right, you mean like the little green men from I've known about this for like 15 years.
Yeah. This is like the best like okay boomer kind of reaction.
They thought they were gonna take over. He's like, no, they're doing it now. It's happening.
It's like okay, do you want me to check your PDFs for you as well, bud? So good. Because I'm imagining Rhodey's like, yeah, I have a scanner. like or just like tech for that already.
I know what you're talking about. That's not going to be a thing. But again, like I hope that this is him as a Skrull, but also in the past he's acted like this as well. Like again,
it's on brand for him.
Yeah, he's being on brand. I think people have picked up on he seems a bit more callous with Nick Fury in this scene.
100%. He's like, I expect higher standards out of you, and you disappointed me because you were my hero. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I respected you, but like,
and he said like, I volunteered for this too. It's like I volunteered to do this. It's like, no, they didn't send me. I volunteered. I'm like, whoa, you're digging the knife in deep there. You're trying to really hurt him right now. This is,
or even the way he like chokes on his drink. The way he's like, dude, they sent you this army, and he's like,
yeah,
nobody sent me.
Yep, and he's doing everything that you would expect the boomer generation to do. It's just like immediately be dismissive. And he's like, yeah, I know, I did this myself. Fuck you.
I liked that. So I know people like the line, I'm Nick Fury, even when I'm out of him, but that felt like a classic not ending the scene at the right time. Because I thought the better line was when the guy tries to put his hands on him and Nick Fury like breaks his hand, takes the gun off him, and he's like, you think because you took my titles I'm gonna relinquish my DNA? I'm like, that feels like the better line of like, no, like this is so deeply ingrained in me. It doesn't matter that you fired me. It doesn't matter that I'm gonna be considered persona non grata. Like, I'm gonna get this shit done.
Yeah. And it's just like, I agree. It leaves the unsavory thing that I'm like, okay, well, now you're in a situation where you're actively pushing Rhodey away as well. Like
Oh no, Rhodey already let him know you've been pushed away. I volunteered to fire you.
Right, but I'm like, hey, I'm pushing back. It's just the bad taste of like, oh, okay.
I don't think he was pushing back. I think he's just showing him
right.
like you did this for whatever reason you think is right, but like you could have just helped me, and now like you're gonna look dumb at the end of it. Like it's just like I'm gonna get this done, I guess, without your help now. But
yeah,
like
that is the promise.
I think that was more of a like you're gonna be on the wrong side of history.
Yeah, you're gonna look dumb on this. Yeah, 100%.
I don't. Yeah, he's like, what? So you volunteered to come shit on me, and then like, what do you think that's gonna do? You think that's gonna make me go sit and cry about it? I'm like, no, I'm gonna. Okay, then I guess I can't count on your help. I'm gonna go do this myself.
Yep.
And I feel like that's more just standing up for himself, which can be considered pushing back. But I didn't feel like he was pushing back in like some kind of appeal to be like, so like now you realize you should work with me. It was more just like, okay, I guess you're out on Nick Fury. Fine.
Yeah, no, it's just a reaction to a reaction and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, you can't fire me, I quit kind of thing. It's just like, no, it's already been done. Like you're just acting silly at this point. But it's just the idea of like, I agree with you. The disarming of the bodyguard and like the breaking of the arm and all that kind of stuff was effective enough to be like a threat. Because it's like,
okay, you've done your worst, but like it didn't stop me from being who I am.
Mm-hmm. And it could have ended a little bit earlier. I'm glad people like that. I'm just like, oh, I'm like, oh no. Well, it would have been cooler if you just walked away. It would have been cooler because now you're just like, oh no, now you're gonna make them aware of the fact that you're against them, as opposed to you could have just played the tail between your legs kind of thing, and just deception, which is he's not doing a great job at in here. But I don't know. 4 more episodes, we might see that it was all part of the plan somehow.
But we get to see him on the bench, like again, take a hit.
Yeah,
he's lost 3 allies at this point.
Yep, bridges being burnt.
Yeah, and then we had some great Sonya Fallsworth stuff. I'm truly a fan of hers.
Oh yes.
When he's like, oh, the door's locked, she's like, yeah, but now that you see me here, what does that tell you about doors and me?
I love to hate this character so much. I'm like, yes, be a bitch in every scene. I love great. It. She commands it.
Yeah, she's so good. But yeah, she's going after the Skrull that was apprehended.
Yeah,
and I like that. Like, just right away, cut his finger off. Great, you are a Skrull.
Yeah,
like confirmed. Okay, now I'm gonna use my like blood boiling stuff on you.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it's just like, hey, oh, we haven't even begun. Yeah. Like I just walked in, said hello, and cut your finger off, and now I'm gonna start asking questions. It's so effective.
I know she gave him a bit of a chance to be like, "Are you gonna cooperate?" And it's like, "No, okay, great, boom, all right." Now the torture starts. This isn't even part of the torture. This is just okay, verified. You're a Skrull.
Yeah,
and then so she learns while they're showing Gaia looking up the computer. This is the scene, but she's like, "What is happening here?" And basically the Skrull gives up. Well, I think he's trying to make us stronger, and we see Gaia on the computer, and so they've got Cull Obsidian, Groot, Frost Beasts, not Giants, and Extremis all put together, which I feel like Super Skrulls usually like can do the powers of the Fantastic Four, so I feel like that's their way of doing some version of 4 different skill sets or powers put together in one Skrull.
Right.
But yeah, and that what I liked about it is that they show you when Gaia is looking it up on the computer that yes, it is the Dalton doctors doing it, so that when he says the name later, you're like, yo, like that is what is happening. Yep. Meaning when later when he gets questioned by Gravik and he goes, no, I only told her lies. Like, no, he didn't. Because I was like, I think the first time I watched him, like, I mean, he could have lied about the names or something, but I was like, no, confirmation before he said it that he gave up the real names.
Yep.
But yeah, great torture scene by Sonya, and I like that before she started, she actually was like, hey, so where's the escape hatch? They're like, why do you need it? She's like, just a hunch, don't worry about it. But yeah, she gets out of there while they're while Gravik comes in to basically extract him.
Yep.
And basically Gravik shows that he definitely can fight. He will be a threat if you have to actually throw down with him.
Yeah, that's why I like in the previous scene where he is like, okay, where he like freaks out and goes like war. I'm like, it's not uncontrolled. That's a very controlled rallying kind of thing. Like
he wasn't
got
out of control,
precision.
But he was getting amped. But it was still 100%. Like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. When people are like, oh, he's like, yeah, he's losing control. I'm like, no, this is a very clear display of how much control he's got right now, and this is great. This whole scene of like, yeah, he's very effective. But I did notice that there's no like display of any powers or anything like that yet. So,
no, because
we'll see.
Can't use powers
yet. Well, I mean, with
that's
the Super Skull thing,
for.
Right.
So we already know it's not finished. So,
right.
Like, yeah, I wouldn't expect to see anything yet. He's just good hand to hand.
No, I'm just like pointing out the fact that I'm like, could you imagine with especially all those
seen in the trailer
genetic things,
the powers?
Yeah, it's great. It's gonna be so cool.
But yeah, that's
because it's like screw the super soldier serum. We got this. I'm like, okay, they win.
So they basically extract the scroll. I already mentioned that he's like, hold on, before we leave, what did you tell her? And then he makes him feel comfortable. They're driving, and you're like, oh man, like when's it gonna happen? And then he's like, they go out into the bushes, and I think he like keeps eye contact with Gaia while he gets shot or whatever, and you're just like, he is not to be fucked with.
No. He is a mean
like,
fella.
You paying attention to what's happening here?
Yeah, it's like, this is what I'm doing now.
Okay, in case you wanted to defect somehow.
Yeah,
and attention to what happens.
And he's like, hey, also remember earlier when I got the rest of the Skrull race behind me because I'm the general now? I can do what I want. And she's recognizing the scale of what she's dealing with now.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting to see her reckon with that. It's like, oh, I enabled this.
She doesn't get a lot of lines, but there's a lot of just like Nick Fury, her reacting to stuff, which I tend to like a lot when I assess an acting performance. Like, how are they reacting to things? Because a lot of people can do the big like, okay, here are my lines, I can kill it when I have to deliver. But like, what's happening when people are talking at them?
Yeah, that's why you get Emilia Clarke for this role, right? Because the eyebrow acting is off the charts. She is always going to have a facial reaction that's going to do something that you're like, well, yep, you're making me feel that because your eyebrows alone.
Yeah. So yeah, that happens, and then we get the scene of Nick Fury basically driving home to his wife.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll talk about this. I didn't really feel like it was that ambiguous. I just assume he knows he's married to a Skrull.
Yeah.
But people have rightly pointed out why would she feel the need to change for him?
Yeah.
But
this is like, I don't yeah.
I just assume he knows, but maybe he doesn't. I just, for me, I was like, wow, he must know. Like he's been around them. I just assumed he would take up with a Skrull.
So, and this is my thing, and I'm just like, there's two possibilities here. Either he does know or he doesn't. And if he doesn't know, then I'm like, oh, that's gonna hit even harder the next episode, or when he finds out that she is a Skrull. Because if she dies and she can't keep up the lie.
It's like, to me, of course he knows that he's married to a Skrull. Like, that's probably what keeps him invested in this thing over 30. For him, that's a long time. I know for Skrulls, it's not technically. If you're like 136 and you haven't even hit midlife yet, maybe 30 years isn't that long, but like, for Nick Fury, like, I could see him being like, no, I'm still invested because I married into the family, and that's and also the idea of sense that she wouldn't be a Skrull in front of him, other than if she doesn't know who's entering the house.
Right. That would be the big thing. It's just like, who's entering? Doesn't matter. Let me shift ships to something less scary and all that kind of stuff. That makes sense to me. To me, he has to know. he has to know, and the whole reason why he's like, no, you have to get off this planet is because it's like, no, the less of you there are, the less problems there are
Right,
with
and
this
I
whole
can keep,
invasion.
and
So I
I
can
can
keep the
have
secret safe.
my wife,
Yeah,
and like
she's the exception.
that's easier than dealing with like a million of you guys.
Yeah. It's like this is the hypocrisy of my thing. It's like, hey, I again xenophobia. It's like no illegal aliens while I
Yeah,
go
I
home
mean
to my
this one's
Vietnamese
good.
wife.
Yeah, this
The
one's
you
good.
know that kind of stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is really really exciting to watch on screen. It's where are they going to go with this? This has
Yeah.
got me so hooked in.
Another
And
thing I'm hoping they address, but I don't think they will, is like, so I watched who was it, Eric Voss, Hector Navarro, and Maud someone. Can't
mhm,
remember her last name. Now I feel
sure.
terrible. But as an Australian, she's like, well, I can't help but notice that, like, the people we're supposed to be afraid of are mostly played by Australians and British people. Like, obviously, she's feeling the codedness of like not a lot of them have American accents, or if any. I mean,
Right.
the mom or his wife does, but like,
Yeah.
so not a lot of that. And I was looking at it like there's a lot of them seem to be black. Like they've lived here long enough that it's got to be a choice when you're like, I will choose to look black. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, what is that? Like, what is that choice there? Like Gravik,
Hmm.
like, I mean, yeah, just there's a lot of them because in the first scene, it's a bunch of like white people showing up and you're like, yeah, I get it. Like they're like, these
Yeah.
seem to be the ones that people like on this planet.
Yeah.
And then like, but then I'm like, in the first episode, it was like the first person they meet is like a dark skinned black guy. I'm like, and you're in Russia. Like I know
Hmm.
obviously you have to go there to get to the haven, but like
Yeah.
it's just like, like wouldn't I would just choose somebody else to get there safer. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that extra heat on me.
Yeah. That first guy, but it's the idea of okay. I've thought about this too. It's the this guy, and this is the part that confuses me. Like when they assimilate to be that person, like I'm taking on this person's skin and identity and all that kind of stuff. They have the machine, right? So when they get there, they assimilate and all that
They
kind of
do,
stuff.
not that guy. That guy did. That's not how it worked for
Yeah,
that guy.
for that guy, he stayed the same person, right? That first recruit that you're talking about with
Yeah,
Amelia
but like
Clark bringing it in,
it's not like he's got someone somewhere else like tied
right?
up and taking it. He just like in Captain Marvel, like
Hmm.
they just got to the Earth right away and were like, oh, okay, because that
Yeah,
was the funny joke of the first where they all turned into the surfer girl, and they're like, well, no, we can't all do that. Like, it's not, so like for the purposes of the
I forgot about
rebellion,
that.
yeah, for
Yeah,
the purpose of the rebellion, yes, they keep the people so they can take their memories, and I guess if one scroll dies, they can still keep that going. But like
right.
for that one-off guy, he didn't know about that practice. He's just like,
Hmm.
oh, that's what you guys do. And I'm just saying, like, it's interesting to see like that people would choose that
Hmm.
um, in an already hostile world towards people who look like that.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing, right? Because like if you were given the choice, it's like, would you bring that heat upon yourself to
Mm-hmm.
actively choose to assimilate to be a person of color versus a white person in this world, like generally speaking, right? Especially in Moscow, like you point out
Yeah,
rightfully so,
like it.
or Russia in any proximity.
So if Rhodey is a Skrull, that makes sense. He's a superhero, and
Yeah,
he gets to be sent to like the meetings or whatever.
yeah,
But like outside of that, if he was like Luke Cage or something, like why? Why did you do that? Like that's
yeah,
just a lot of heat for no good reason.
yeah. It's the
Like
idea.
there's at least
Yeah,
power that comes with being James Rhodey.
right, right. Absolutely. It's we're not actually being black. We're being James Rhodes in this
Yes.
situation, but this is a person that's you've chosen to be a black woman.
Hmm.
Why?
I
What's the
mean that
reason
I guess for that
behind
I'm like,
that?
well, you want to be with you want
With
to be with Nick
Fury,
Fury, so
sure, but
sure.
generally speaking, if you
Yes.
have that choice, no one's rushing, to make that choice, and it's a very interesting thing of what the scroll kind of thing is looking at from an
Unless they just are like, look, like these people saw themselves in the people they assimilate. Like, and I'm not
right,
talking about the warriors that have to like
right,
stay in a shell. I'm talking about just the day to day scrolls that we see changing. Like, if it's just something that I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. You're like, oh, okay, that seems like me.
Yeah,
Like
but
I look at that and I identify. Okay, sure.
right, and I wonder if they're actively trying to say something about like the Skrull that choose to be people of color and what they are representing within this rebellion, and like the assimilation coexisting aspects of what Amelia thinks she's fighting for versus on the anger we're gonna be whatever. But like you said, even and I forget his name, but the main guy, the very effective guy,
Gravik.
Gravik, yeah, he's like, wait, why aren't you peeing a white guy right now? That's it's genuinely interesting.
I mean,
but I like his swagger in the sense where I'm going to change and
more
I
black,
don't
I'd
have
be
to.
like, oh, I'm Nick Fury. I could see him be
Right.
like, oh, I picked the most powerful human I could, like, again, without being Nick Fury. But I mean, that comes down to just the actor and wanting a very strong actor to be Gravik. But I'm just like,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like an interesting question, but I'm hoping they get into it in the show. If they don't, then whatever. You can just chalk it up to, you know what, these are the actors they got.
Yeah, like maybe it's maybe it speaks to the idea of like how he personalized the hatred towards humanity is the idea of like, no, this is the racism I experienced and Amelia didn't. This is why her naivety gets to exist and why Ben Mendelsohn's naivety gets to exist. I think it's actually assimilate within government culture versus with me, it's like, no, did you see this racist shit they did to us? No, of course I'm angry. Of course I'm angrier than all of you. You're sitting at the UN. I'm not. And I'm like, okay, that from a storytelling perspective would be like, okay, that would be really, really cool. And I hope that's kind of where they're going, that with a teenage kind of flashback with Gravik. Because I think that would be a really cool layer of his character. But it really does highlight the idea of like, okay, yeah, everyone else in that room that chose like that got recruited to Team Fury in that beginning thing, who later on became like UN and NATO and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, you all chose white people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is saying something in this
Definitely.
scene, and like the fact that you're like, hey, we're not going to invite the one guy that's black in this scene, but there is an Asian guy in that scene that didn't get any lines, and I'm like, what is this guy all about? And I'm like, this is weird. Now I'm like, okay, well, what?
I mean, again, there is that proximity to power with the Asian, like it doesn't get a voice, but like is there
model
but
minority
again, I don't
shit.
know how deep the show is actually trying to write things.
Well,
that might have just been an accident that happened because of what we're talking about that always happens,
right? And if it wasn't, I'm like, they actually did the resurch, because this is something that is very, very real. It's like, okay, yeah, an Asian that would be like you said, adjacent to power, and model minority bullshit where you're like, no, you don't have a voice, you're just saying what we say, so shut up, like kind of deal. It's the idea of that if that was explored, I'm like, cool, that it's very real. But at the same time, it still sucks, but I'm like,
it does.
It is.
Yeah, I keep seeing people say this show's boring, but I'm not really I'm not seeing it.
Well, I like to see a correlation between what their the perspectives they're coming at it from versus the perspectives you and I are coming at it from, right?
People that liked Andor and stuff like that, which got to take its time because it was 12 episodes, so I found it to move slower than this. I think an unfair thing I saw was people were like, oh, well, like Andor, you get to see the first 3 episodes, and they're like, but this one episode was boring. I'm like, if I watched the first episode of Andor, I would have thought that show was boring too. Like, we got 3 at a time, but they could burn 3 at a time because they have 12 episodes.
Yeah,
you can't really do 3 at a time with this show.
Yeah,
or even 2 at a time, really, in a 6 episode thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it's that weird thing that I was talking about where it's like, do you want it all to come out at the same time or not? Because a lot of the complaints I hear is people being like, not actively being able to just wait until something's done before they pass judgment.
That always seems to be the case to me. I'm like, once I read between the lines, I'm like, oh, it just seems like you're complaining that you don't have more of this now.
Yeah,
and I get that complaint, but it's not something that's valid right now.
We are looking at a black character and actually trying to unpack their emotions about things, which I can also see being a problem for other people.
Yes. And I think the thing is with this show, I would be more upset if they released it all at one time. I'm like, wait, what do you? No, make people have these conversations. Let this simmer with
as
people.
I said, I think this works as a week to week, but like
100%.
I've also seen articles being like, I think this show proves that people don't know how to talk about Marvel, which I do agree with. Like they're just like, wow, this is boring. And it's like, okay, well, what about those other shows where like all they're doing is punching each other?
Because it's just like, it feels like to be there's an era of criticism that's like, hey, let's find something to be mad at, and I'm like, that's a crappy place to come from, in the sense where you're like actively trying to find something bad about something.
You want
is
answers,
just
or do you want to be angry?
Great, because you're just trying to side with the majority of the populace that says that already. You're basically talking about trending, what's the shit that's trending on Twitter, and I hate that. I hate that so much. It's not fun. It's clickbait, money generating bullshit. I want real criticism back.
Well, I'm still enjoying the show. I'm glad that this episode happened, and we'll be back next week to do episode 3. But thank you very much for listening, everybody. We're part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Game Movies, Contra Zoom Pod, Springfield Googleplex. So please go to thatshelf.com. You'll find those shows, our show, and more shows. If you would like to hear older episodes of our show, you can go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter and Instagram is @tdfspoiled. We're on all the podcast platforms, so please rate, review, subscribe, follow, share, do all those great things for us. Give us a bump. And as I said, we'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Yep. Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.